صرصر عاتية سخرها عليهم 7 ليال و8 أيام حسوما فترى القوم فيها صرعى كأنهم أعجاز نخل خاوية فهل ترى لهم من باقية وجاء فرعون ومن قبله والمؤتفكات بالخاطئة فعصوا رسول ربهم فأخذهم أخذة رابية إنا لما طغى الماء حملناكم في الجارية لنجعلها لكم تذكرة وتعيها أذن واعية فإذا نفخ في الصور نفخة واحدة وحملت الأرض والجبال فدكتا دكة واحدة فيومئذ وقعت الواقعة وانشقت السماء فهي يومئذ واهية والملك على أرجائها ويحمل عرش ربك فوقهم يومئذ 8 يومئذ تعرضون لا تخفى منكم خافية فأما من أوتي كتابه بيمينه فيقول هاؤم اقرءوا كتابيه إني ظننت أني ملاق حسابيه فهو في عيشة راضية في جنة عالية
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in online live, and also those of us present here in person today. As the audience is primarily online, If anybody has a question, could you please submit it either anyone here in person today or online via the website shaykharif.com/live. Could you please welcome Shaykh Arif by reciting a salawat?
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. Thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين، ولعنة الله الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمسابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Picking up from where we left off yesterday, that the birth and the continued existence of Mahdi, with the assumption that there is some connection with Al-Mahdi, has informed the Shia Ithnashri community of a lot of its practices, its spirituality, its ceremonies, and its belief systems, and its theology. Now we want to examine these things carefully today, and and together with that, to look at them in the context of the conceptual Mahdi, or the broader understanding of Mahdi as the one who delivers humanity when it comes to the completion of its journey in the process of ridding itself of its negativity and its regressive trend, or removing itself of that Dajjali, pretentious, deceptive trend through which it justifies its own evil doings. So we want to examine them in that light and see, are they productive or counterproductive, and are they in themselves valid, and do they have validity in terms of the sources through which we source them? So the first thing that we want to ask is that there are within the books of Ghaiba the miracles attributed to Imam Mahdi Salamullah alayh. And these miracles are often used to prove that he is the Imam and he did this. But if you go through these miracles, you might ask several questions. Well, who are the people who are reporting them, and how do they constitute miracles in the first place? And indeed, is there any need for a miracle? When we look at the Quran, when the prophets are asked to provide miracles, the prophets always respond that the miracles are not within our power. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives these signs. These miracles in the Quranic language are known as signs. For example, Allah gives Musa the staff and the glowing hand. And He said, take these two signs to the Pharaoh. Now the purpose of these signs was squarely to make the Pharaoh unable to respond to what Moses has brought, and therefore for the Pharaoh and his community to submit and surrender that this is from a loftier authority. And then that becomes an invitation for them to then listen to the message of Moses. So the primary goal of these signs was to invite the minds to the message that was being imparted. The signs in themselves were worth no more than their immediate effect. So when the Prophet says, and the Prophet of Islam has also said the same thing, and previous prophets said, we cannot bring about any signs. We do not have any mu'jiza. These mu'jizas are in the hands of Allah. So the first thing we want to ask is, what purpose does a mu'jiza serve in the case of the 12th Imam? Islam is already there. He doesn't need to invite people to Islam. Islam is already established. The Prophet did that and he brought the living miracle. The only miracle he brought was the Quran, and no more miracles were brought. Now if we look at these, some of them are quite obvious that these cannot be admitted as any supernatural events. In fact, some of them we will say we know they've been fabricated and concocted. But there are many, many other things that are attributed as miracles in which people who are lost find their way. People who are sick find cure. Now here, these miracles do not constitute miracles because they do not perform the function of a miracle. A person is sick, they are cured without their understanding as to how they are cured. That does not prove anything to anybody else apart from that individual concerned, and they cannot be admitted as miracles. It's unlike the staff of Moses that turns into a serpent. I became cured miraculously of cancer. Does not substantiate any point. It's just a personal sign for me. So when we look at the miracles, we find that no, they are not admissible. We cannot use them to prove anything. The person who does experience what they see is a miracle, then it serves a purpose for them, and indeed we will revisit this point afterwards. Then we have a lot of this literature of meeting with Imam al-Mahdi. So we have these stories of our grand ulama meeting with Imam Mahdi in his absence, or Allama Hilli meeting with this person who then miraculously writes the whole book for him, or who then gives him the responses for the questions that he was asking, and later on it is then understood that that was the 12th Imam. Now all the books that are filled with such meetings with the 12th Imam and attributed to a grand noble ulama flatly are to be refused. They cannot be admitted to. Why? Because the final Safir, the emissary of the 12th Imam, the final emissary, Abdulhussain, Muhammad ibn Ali, summary, he has this, what we call the tawqi'at, the letters with the stamp of the Imam, in which the Imam gives his instructions to his followers. In one of these tawqi'at, the Imam says, if anybody claims that they have seen me after this day, it is not to be admitted. Anybody who says that they have seen me before the Sufyani emerges, before there is a cry from the heavens that east and west will all hear that your Imam is here now, and before I come out again, all the people who claim that they have seen me, they are not to be believed in. So all such signs and the books that are filled with these signs, according to this instruction, are to be refused. They are not to be admitted to. Then we have certain books for which there is a claim that they have received the seal of divine approval from the 12th Imam, such as Al-Kafi. Now obviously the ulama are also contending against this, that this seal of approval of Kafi is not from the Imam nor from one of his emissaries. Somebody has just fabricated this and put it into the introduction of Kafi. But otherwise we have this famous understanding that the Kafi was given by Kulayni, rahmahullah, to one of the emissaries to take it to the 12th Imam. The 12th Imam read the book Kafi and then approved it, and he received the seal of approval with the statement, Al-Kafi Kafi li-Shi'atina, that Kafi is sufficient for our Shia. Now this is to be denied flatly, as our ulama are saying, that this cannot be verified at all. But more than this, if we look at the Kafi, book Kafi, majority of the ulama themselves reject many of the ahadith. In fact, 60% of the hadith from the last time I looked at it, I have to be very careful with the percentages nowadays. 60% of the hadith from the last time when I looked at it are not to be considered as valid. If you look at the hadith in Kafi, you will find the hadith that says that the Quran is not complete. And you have many ahadith of this nature which stand in opposition to the text of the Quran itself. The Quran in Surah Hajj, Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun. We have revealed the dhikr and we will protect it. No falsities will touch it from before it or behind it. And Surah Al-Qiyamah, when it says to the Prophet, La tuharrik bihi lisanaka lita'ajala bihi. O Muhammad, do not hasten to deliver this Quran. We will gather it, we will compile it, and we will read it. So there is this divine undertaking that the Quran will be protected from any type of adulteration. And then when we get a hadith in Kafi, and similarly our Sunni brothers have the same hadith, that the Quran is not the Quran revealed to the Prophet, it is a different Quran in the sense it's too big or too small. And similarly in many of our literature, and I think also in Kitabul Irshad, there is one hadith that the Quran will not be the same Quran when the 12th Imam comes, and the biggest problem will be for the people who have memorized the Quran, because the 12th Imam will bring the Quran in its chronological order. As opposed to this, we have hadith from the Prophet, that the Quran, hadith from the Imams, that the Quran was compiled in the time of the Prophet through the instructions of the Prophet. So if you look at the Kafi, hadiths from the Kafi, we find that they are totally conflicting with that which is theologically established. So such claims as well that emanate from the 12th Imam are to be flatly rejected. These tawqi'at claims that do not make any sense. Yes, there might be some tawqi'at, seal of approval of the Imam, that might be valid, but we need to examine them. My point is squarely to compare these theologies, ceremonies, practices against the conceptual Mahdi. And inshallah we do that slowly as we advance into it. Then we have the whole of this notion of the intervention of the 12th Imam. Now you know of this particular story that a great scholar of ours, he was faced with a question that there is a woman who was pregnant, she has died, shall we bury her with her unborn child? And he said, indeed do so. As they prepared for her funeral, a messenger came and said he has changed his view. And he is saying instead now, do a cesarean section and remove the child. They removed the child was alive and was able to live without the aid of the womb. So they went back to that grand scholar and they said, your intervention was timely. He said, I did not send a messenger. So he understood that this was intervention of the 12th Imam. At that point he said, since I am fallible and I cannot give accurate Sharia rulings, I will now shut my doors to giving any more opinions or any more edicts or any more verdicts. When he did that, this is the claim, that he received communication that it is your job to try as much as you can, we will put it right if you get it wrong. The immediate rebuttal to this is, that is the life of one unborn child more important or the life of 1 million people who have been killed in Middle East? Why could the same Imam not intervene in a timely fashion through the ulama to say that these conflicts are brewing up? Take caution, nullify these conflicts before there is a full-fledged, uncontrollable sectarian strife on the way. It stands to reason that if they are going to intervene in the case of one unborn child, then isn't the 12th Imam duty bound to then intervene in the case of 1 million people who are going to die? I know numbers are not really important when it comes to human life, but 1 million lives being lost? Or could he not then intervene by saying to the scholars that you give the same ruling? You cannot split people up by different rulings. Why is one saying one thing and another one saying another thing, and then causing so much strife upon the face of this earth? And why are the people becoming fragmented through the whole process of a scholar giving their view, which are in conflict with another scholar that is before him or contemporary with him or living alongside him, and then their conflict of views is dividing the whole community? Why can't the Imam intervene in such instances instead? So if intervention is allowed at one point, it should be allowed at every point. And two, if intervention is allowed in one unborn child, it should be admitted too, for the sake of keeping the whole community united and not letting it destroy itself through sectarian tension or through the conflict of fatwas. So we can see that whatever happened there cannot directly be admitted as the meeting with the Mahdi or an intervention of Salamullah alayh. And then again, this also goes and runs contrary to the whole claim that anybody who says that they have seen me is not to be believed until the Sufyani comes out. So this is, in actual fact, another way of seeing the Mahdi, his intervention. So these are all the sort of justifications that people have in their minds for being in communication with Mahdi, Salamullah, alayhi, so on and so forth. If you ask our ulama, they will say that no, we are not in communication with the Mahdi and he does not come and directly guide us or any such thing. They're very humble and they will admit to this. Now, places devoted to Imam Mahdi. Masjid Sahla, we have a report from Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayh, in which he says that this will be the house of Mahdi and his family when he comes. He will distribute the Baytul Mal from this place and will keep it there. As far as Mahdi coming and visiting people in Masjid Sahla is concerned, the ulama do not really believe in this. That Mahdi comes and visits people, yes, not taking anything away from Masjid Sahla. It is a grand mosque. Do the amal, do the dua, do whatever. But the notion of the 12th Imam coming and visiting people in Masjid Sahla, or that people doing these amal in Masjid Sahla and then seeing the 12th Imam, this cannot be verified at all. And our ulama actually will cast doubt on the validity of these things as well. Masjid Jamkaran. Masjid Jamkaran in the last century is a product of a scholar's dream, in which he said that when the 12th Imam comes, one of his places from which he will organize his state will be Jamkaran. It's become very, very prominent. Now, I'm not saying do not go there, and indeed I'm going to revisit this thing in a little while again. But what I'm saying is, as far as facts are concerned, there is no direct link between Masjid of Jamkaran and the 12th Imam that can be sourced from the statement of the Prophet or his family. It's based on a dream. As far as Masjid Sahla is concerned, the visitation of the 12th Imam in his occultation cannot be substantiated, not at all. I'm not saying don't go and visit those places, but we will come to it in a little while. Supplications for the Mahdi Salamullah alayh. Dua Faraj. Now, Dua Faraj are of two types. Allahumma kun la waliyik al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan and Ilahi Adam al-Bala. Now, Allahumma kun la waliyik Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, the ulama will say, it's got a chain, but at some point it cannot be verified when the chain says it's from the Salihin, group of righteous people. We don't know who they are and we don't know who is before them. Now, if you look at the content of the dua, Allahumma kun la waliyik Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, we will say, well, there's no harm in the content. We're just praying for him. The antagonist responds and says, without you praying for him, Allah is going to safeguard him anyway. If Allah has decided to safeguard him, think about this carefully. If Allah has decided to safeguard him and bring him out at an appointed time, whether you pray Allah safeguard him or not, Allah has taken it upon himself to safeguard him anyway. Can you see that? So what's the point of praying this dua? The answer is, well, it's a form of connection that we have with the Imam in terms of our sentiment and our love for him. It's like a mother knowing that the child is protected by Allah, but still she will helplessly pray for the child. So Allahumma kun la waliyyak al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. So I will say it's perfectly fine to pray, but to pray with the intention that we are praying for him in order to have that beautiful sentiment being displayed of our love to him, not prayed as a part of religion. That needs to be clarified at the very least, because it cannot be established that this is a part of religion or that it has been ordained. Now I know it is there in Mafatihul Jinan, and on the 23rd night of Ramadan we have to pray this. It's perfectly fine, because it shows that we are mindful of him and we are mindful of the overall purpose, so on and so forth, and we are reminded of it. But for people to pray it with the notion that this is religion and ordained by religion, that creates maybe a different mentality that is not really given by the Prophet and his family. Dua Nudba. Again, it cannot be proven at all that this is from the Imam. Now, if you look at the content of Dua Nudba, it is historical and theological, and it is somebody who is lamenting. Can it be qualified as a dua in the first place? Look at the content of it, I don't know. I suppose for a person who understands that this is not from religion, and I'm still praying it, is perfectly fine. But to have this notion that this is a part of religion, and religiously to be prayed on a Friday, because it's been ordained, this doesn't work. It is here that we have to make a distinction that, I want to pray it, I can pray it, it's fine. It is mubah to pray. Yes? The precept of ibaha will allow for the prayers of this kind, because there's nothing in there that is theologically suspect or suspicious. I mean, there are some notions in there, but I find them okay. We can explain them away in one way or another. Dua Iftitah. It is coming from the second Naib, Abu Ja'far Muhammad bin Uthman Amari. Now here, if we look at Dua Iftitah, it's a phenomenal dua. It's a phenomenal dua, but it has two parts. The first part is eloquent, just like you would expect from an imam. So here, the thing is that we can trace it back to the second Naib. But we do not have this notion that the second Naib is telling us that he's delivering it from the 12th Imam. But we can conclude that why would he concoct it? He would have given it from the 12th Imam in the occultation of the 12th Imam, the minor occultation. But now, if we were to analyze the content of Dua Iftitah, we will see that the first part of Dua Iftitah is phenomenal. The eloquency, the theme, the unity of God, the authority of God in His unity. It is absolutely God-centric and aligned with God. And we would expect nothing less than that from an Imam. Then there's a switch. And then we see complaints coming out in a plural sense. So the first part of it is a first person speaking and supplicating to Allah. Allahumma inni aftatihu thana'a bihamdik. O Allah, I commence with praising you and recounting your blessings and your praise. At the other side of the dua after the salawat on the Prophet and his family, Allahumma inna nashku ilayka. We are complaining to you. Then it becomes we. Faqda nabiyana wa ghaybata waliyana wa kathrata aduwina wa qillata adadina. Here you are seeing that the accent changes from I into we. So we are seeing two parts here. At least the first part of it is perfectly brilliant. And we can say that Dua Iftitah is very, very God-centric. So we can conclude that yes, one part of it is from the Imam, at least. The other part might be from the Imam to teach the people how to pray at that particular point. But there's a huge difference between the two parts. The first part is an eternal part, because that eulogy of God, praise of God, acknowledgement of His authority and that God's centricity that it's giving, it's unending. This will continue till the day of Qiyamah. But the second part is very much contextual. It may not be true from a century to another. Not the missing of the wali and the faqd of the nabi, but all the other things that are there might not add up. And we will go through that in a little while. Dua Ahad, that we pray in the morning and for 40 days and then we get raised, even if we have died, then we get raised and amongst the soldiers of Al-Mahdi salamullah alayh. Now here the ulama say, there is one person who is weak. There is one person who is totally unknown. There are fuqaha reporting it, fine. There are sahabis of the 8th Imam reporting it, but eventually it goes to the 6th Imam. So the first thing is that we cannot be sure that this dua is sourced accurately from the 6th Imam. Some ulama say that no, there is a cut in the chain, it's a mursal. And we don't know who the other reporters are, so we can't verify at all whether the chain is valid or not. Some others comment that certain themes in this dua were not existent in the time of the sixth Imam, such as the manner of doing bay'ah. They comment in different ways. I feel that no, this particular dua, I think if you read it, it has themes that you find, well, these are sort of alien themes to the time of the sixth Imam. Yes, you do. But when people comment and they say, well, it's talking about raj'ah, the return of the souls back to life before the day of Qiyamah, and the belief in raj'ah itself is suspect. It cannot be proven. I beg to differ. Because raj'ah, of course, the opponents of the 12ers say that this is a Jewish belief that you have included within the folds of Shia Islam. Yes, Jews have this belief. The Jewish scriptures have this belief that certain souls will be brought back to life and they will live forever until the day of Qiyamah. And then after that, there will be another life, and whatever happens in a post-mortemic state after the Qiyamah, whatever happens there. But the Quran itself talks about several dying and several revivals. For example, in Baqarah it says, and do you not know of those people, and they were in their thousands, they got out of their village, hadar al-maut, in the fear of death, and Allah told them to die. And then when the famine was lifted, Allah said, and brought them back to life. The people of Moses, they said, we want to see Allah. There was a cry, they all died from the heavens, and then they were brought back to life. Uzair, so we have so many examples of people dying, being brought back to life, dying, being brought back to life. So I'm saying, well, it's not that far-fetched logically. Logically, it doesn't seem to be inconsistent. But I will say this, that if it is not established that it's from the sixth Imam, then theological sort of understanding of the faith cannot be based on such a dua. And two, it should not be performed as a part of religion. So when people say it's my religion to wake up in the morning and pray this dua for 40 mornings and I'm guaranteed a place with the 12th Imam, inshallah they will be. But they have to be clear in their minds that we cannot say that this has been ordained by faith. And we have to be clear that if there are negative themes in that dua, because certain themes might not be very accurate if we analyze them very carefully, which we will come to in a little while, then they should be very careful in trying to understand that such teachings should not influence their outlook and their mindset. Then we have the ziyarah of the 12th Imam, the Friday salutation. If you look at the Friday salutation, it is reported to have come from the 11th Imam. Now that salutation, it says to the 12th Imam, Ana fihi dayfuka wa jaruk. I'm a guest of yours therein, and I'm your neighbor. Fa'adifni wa ajirni. Be a good host to me and be a good neighbor to me. Now, the 12th Imam is saying anybody who says they've seen me has lied. Two, the same ziyarat in the case of the Prophet, Imam Ali, Bibi Fatima, Hassan Hussein, and all the Imams say the same thing. Ana dayfuka wa jaruk, dayfukum wa jarukum, dayfukuma wa jarukuma. This is totally alien to everything that the Prophet and his family has taught. The Imams have never said to the Prophet, on this day I am your guest, after the death of the Prophet. After the demise of the Prophet, the Imams never said this. So we have to be careful here that these themes are theologically suspect. It introduces this false notion that we can talk with the Imams and we are their guests and they are our host. It takes us away at times from the notion of God centricity. What I'm saying is that if it is a clear-cut case that the Imam has taught this, then I'm ready to then submit and surrender. The Imam has taught this, he knows best, his superior intellect is there. But when we can't even source it from the Imam accurately, and there are so many questions, then we should be careful. Then the other theme that is in there, وَقَتْلُ الْكَافِرِينَ بِسَيْفِكَ, and the killing of the kafir with your sword. This brings about a very negative outlook. Can you imagine in the 21st century where the Muslims are saying that the rest of the world is a kafir, and indeed they feel they are in kafir land, and then they pray this ziyarah, that your killing of the kafir with your sword. what sort of a mindset does it create within the mind of the follower? That these are kafir, and eventually the 12th Imam is going to just chop their heads off. That doesn't really make sense. Now, Dua Faraj, I didn't mention the other one, Ilahi Adam al-Bala. I need to go through that one as well. If you look at this dua, the ulama are saying we can't source it. And in addition to not being able to source it, it is something totally inconsistent with the teachings of the Prophet and his family. And in fact, it seems to be the introduction of the extremists or the ghulat. Ilahi Adam al-Bala wa barih al-khifa wa nkashaf al-ghita wa nqata al-raja. It's a complaint. It's perfectly fine. But when it comes to the point, فَصَلِّ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِ مُحَمَّدٍ أُولِي الْأَمْرِ الَّذِينَ فَرَضْتَ عَلَيْنَا طَاعَتَهُمْ وَعَرَّفْتَنَا بِذَلِكَ مَنْزِلَتَهُمْ فَفَرِجْ عَنَّا بِحَقِّهِمْ فَرَجًا عَاجِلًا قَرِيبًا كَلَمْهِ الْبَصَرِ أَهُ أَقْرَبُ. Then we say, Ya Muhammadu, Ya Aliyu, Ya Aliyu, Ya Muhammad, ikfiyani fa innakuma kafiyan. O Muhammad, O Ali, O Ali, O Muhammad, be sufficient for me because you too have sufficiency in you. Wansurani fa innakuma nasiran, and you too help me because you too are helpers. I'll say, well, why didn't Hussein ibn Ali salamullah alayh even once ask Muhammad salamullah alayh and Ali salamullah alayh to come and help him on the day of Ashura? Why never in any of the du'as of Hussein ibn Ali salamullah alayh did he ask the blessed Prophet or the blessed Imam Ali to come and help? Why didn't he say, Ya Muhammad, Ya Ali, unsurani fa innakuma nasiran, wakfiyani fa innakuma kafiyan? In addition, this dua creates a mindset that is totally inconsistent with the Tawheed of Allah. The Tawheed in the belief of one Ilah, and the Tawheed in the ibadah of Allah and the potency of God. Can you see this? These du'as are to be taken very carefully, and their themes are because they can fashion the whole mindset of a people who believe in Mahdi. The amazing thing is that they are derived from the Mahdi and Mahdiism, but they are missing the teachings of the Mahdi and his forefathers, the noble forefathers. Then we have the ziyarah of Ali Yasin. Now, Ali Yasin is got from the Tawqi'at again, of the last naib of the Imam. Now, if you look at Ziyarat Ali Yasin, there is nothing wrong with it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. Yes? If Assalamu ala Ali Yasin, you've read it, right? When you stand, when you sit, when you do tasbih, when you do salawat, when you do this, when you do that. Now, I want to ask the ulama to seriously study the impact of the theology that is contained within Surah Al Yasin and its alignment with the message of the Quran and the message that the Prophet and his family have taught. If it is perfectly fine, then go ahead with it. If it is conflicting with that theology, then please review the content of it and see if it was meant to be recited at a particular time in history where people were unsure about who their Imam is, and it was there to emphasize to their minds that he is there, or was it to be recited within the major occultation as well? I'm making a distinction here. I'm not dismissing the ziyarat of Ali Yasin, and in fact, I don't find the content problematic for me, in terms of my broad framework of theology. I don't find it problematic. All I find problematic is that the mindset, the theology inside it is creating. It talks about raj'ah and other things, which I'm saying, according to me, raj'ah is perfectly fine, but the ulama do not agree with raj'ah. Some of the ulama do not agree with raj'ah. So I'm asking them to have a closer look at the theology of certain ziyarat and see if it is aligned with what the Prophet and his family have taught, and if it's in accordance with the Quran. I do admit, however, that it might have been in line with the practice that was needed at that time towards the end of Ghaibatul Sughra. Now I want to analyze the contents of these du'as and ziyarat. Look at these du'as and ziyarat. They are all about complaining. And we want relief by the coming of the Mahdi. It is all looking at the world in a very bleak view. And we want the Mahdi to come and relieve us of this negativity. what does that do? It immediately imposes negativity inside our minds. That the world is a place that is contemptible. It's an evil place. It's not going to get better. We are the protected ones and we are praying to the Mahdi. And we will be the ones who will be saved at the end of the day. As a result, we hardly produce noble humanitarians that work for the cause of humanity. We are hardly producing the minds that the non-Muslim world has produced. Because we are afraid. We don't want to explore anything. Our interpretation of those noble ahadith that were given by the Imams is again a very regressive interpretation. I often say this, that when these hadiths said you will see each other in the palms of your hand, this was supposed to promote growth, that something like this is possible and we need to achieve it. As opposed to that, our feeble minds interpreted as it to be a feat of miracle brought about by the Mahdi. It's a miraculous thing. Can you see how our minds are working? Think about the broader concept of Mahdiism. The broader concept of Mahdiism is that the global humanity comes to the actualization of the human potential. They come to a pedestal of becoming God-like. They come to a state of enlightenment. They are able to purge the Dajjali element from them. To be honest with you, these du'as bring into the mind a very negative, bleak and Dajjali content and outlook. Because the world is not a good place, it's a darkened place, it's an evil place. That regressive mindset has got nothing to do with Mahdiism. Mahdiism is all about progression. It imposes this regressive tendency in the mind. But then why were they given in the first instance? Now think about it. There is validity in these du'as. How? When dua iftitah was given, as I said, the first part is impeccable. Yes? It is eloquent. It's phenomenal. The second part is also valid in that context. Allahumma inna narghabu ilayka fi dawlatin karima. We want the dawla karima, the noble state. Because for them, they were under the rule of Bani Abbas. And they felt oppressed. For them, it was right for them to make that supplication. Today, for me to make that supplication might not be right at all. Because I am becoming pacified, that I can't do anything, my hands are tied. My Nabi has gone, my Wali is absent, I can't do anything. Send him back so he can then bring back justice. Can you see that? You've heard this many times. When Ayatollah Khomeini, Ridwanullah alayhi, went to Sayyid Mohsin al-Hakim, and he said to Sayyid Mohsin al-Hakim, you have such power, you should maybe mount a rebellion against the Ba'athi regime. Sayyid Mohsin al-Hakim said to him, he said, we should adhere to the tradition of Al-Hasan and have a quietist approach. Imam Khomeini said, well, why can't we have the Husseini approach? That is activity within the realms of Mahdiism. That is passivity. These two things, those are not alien. It's not something I am saying. It is something that's existed there. So if you look at these du'as, Qatul Kafirina Bisayfik, we are always crying. We have got a victim mentality. We are always crying. There is nothing but complaint. We always complain. We always cry. The rest of the world is oppressive. We are the oppressed. We are always beating our chests. Beating the chest in the love of Hussein is one thing. Beating the chest because we are oppressed and good for nothing is another thing. There's difference between the two. When we beat our chest in honor of a warrior, that brings about the warrior sentiment within us. But when we beat our head and chest and say, we are so oppressed, we are not capable of doing anything, and we are forever crying, that's the victim mentality. And that's the reason why, for most part, we see that the community always sheds the blame on others. So this is the negativity that these du'as create. I know my time has gone and I've got quite a bit to cover. I'll make it very, very quick, yeah? I'll make it very, very quick and cover the rest tomorrow. Mahdi Salamullah visiting us. One of the naibs says, yes, he goes and visits people in Arafah. Nowadays, all of us want and we go to Arafah to visit Imam Mahdi Salamullah alayhi. But the thing is, that naib was saying that in Ghaibatul Sughra. He was saying that in Ghaibatul Sughra. In Ghaibatul Sughra, he goes and visits everybody. Nothing to do with Ghaibatul Kubra. Think about it. And on top of that, if somebody says, oh, I saw the Mahdi himself is saying he's a liar. Because nobody should be trusted when they say they've seen me. Can you see this? Al-Mahdi seeing our deeds on Thursdays and praying for us. The Prophet did not know the intentions of the people sitting with him, and the Quran is telling him that you think they are good, but they are the worst of enemies, O Muhammad. Allah bears witness, these people are munafiq. If the Prophet and Imam Ali did not know. Can you see this? Think about it. Imam Hassan was betrayed by his own generals. He could not see his own generals' intentions. Think about these things. We need valid theology. We have to be based on something substantial that we can put our foot on and we can stand on it. Be grounded. Reason admits to it. Text admits to it. These things are not really there. Now I'll just go through one and then tomorrow I'll conclude this. Ariza. What is the story with Ariza, by the way? Hussein ibn Ruh, An-Nawabakhti, Abul Qasim, Hussein ibn Ruh An-Nawabakhti. He was the third emissary. Why are we writing Ariza and throwing it to Hussein ibn Ruh? Why not to the fourth one? Abul Qasim, Muhammad ibn Ali, summary. Why to the third one? And if after the death of the third one was still valid means to the 12th Imam, why did he need to appoint a fourth one? Can you see this? There is a logical inconsistency in the flow here. If the third one can serve after his death as an emissary taking our letters to the 12th Imam, then he could have served after his death and the 12th Imam need not appoint the fourth one, his successor. Now one of the reasons there is that maybe he was taking the communications in that time from the people to the 12th Imam. And in one of the miracles, I think I've heard this somewhere, I need to check it out if it's there in the book of Tusi Ghaiba, that one of the signs that this great man had was that he could read blank papers and translate them. There's a blank paper, somebody is just writing with their finger and he could just read it and then translate it. I mean, that's a sign. I'm sorry I laughed there, but that was because of my appreciation of it. So I think that's why we still write with our fingers on Ariza, don't we? We are told write in any language, and to be honest with you, when you throw that in the water, the fish eat and then the ink goes anyway, so it becomes blank. Can you see this? If you write with ink, I don't think it's getting anywhere. So he could read blank letters. So I think maybe this theology is emanating from there. It has no solid foundation or basis. Now, I want to leave us with a problem. But the Arizas are getting answered. People are mystically and miraculously being helped. Masjid Sahla and Masjid Jamkaran are curing people of their diseases and their sicknesses. They have mysterious experiences there. Well, what about all of that? That, inshallah, we will discuss tomorrow. En route to Kufa, Imam Hussein is intercepted by Hur. Now, you know the conversation of Hur and Imam Hussein, and Imam Hussein is phenomenal in the way he speaks. He says, "Oh people, you are the ones who invited me. If you don't want me, I will leave." Hur said, "I'm not amongst those people, and I have been commanded to stay with you until I take you to Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad or wherever you camp." Imam Hussein says in a khutbah, he says, the Prophet has said that when wrong is being done and you do not strive to put it right, then God has the right to punish you in accordance with the punishment of the oppressors and the tyrants. He is reminding Hur of his mission. Hur does not want to engage in a fight with Imam Hussein. So when Imam Hussein prepares to leave, Hur says to Imam Hussein, "Do not oppose these people. They may put you to death." Imam Hussein says to Hur, "Do you frighten me with death, O Hur? A free man is one who stands for what he believes. If he lives, his head is held high. And if he dies, then he has died in defiance. This humility is sufficient for you, O Hur, that you call yourself Hur, a free man, and your nose is rubbed in the humility of surrender to other than God. So who understands the intention of Hussein Salamullah alayhi? It's the night or early morning of Ashura. Who defects from the camp of Umar ibn Sa'd. As he goes, his servant, his son and his brother accompany him. It's a very emotional scene when Hur comes to Al-Hussein. He says, "Do you forgive me?" He embraces him and says, "My God has forgiven you as well, O Hur." He says, "Allow me to speak to the daughters of the Prophet." He goes outside their tent and he said, "Here before you comes a man who is guilty for your fate on this day. Do you have any forgiveness in your heart for me? I come repentant." When he said this, the women began to cry. He said, "Will you forgive me and not complain to your grandfather?" Their cries filled the sky. At that point he beat his head and he said, "If only this tongue had become mane and my hands withered away before I intercepted Al-Hussein and said to him what I said." The women consoled him. Hur said to Imam Hussein, he said, "Allow me to lead your army and to engage in battle." He said, "Indeed." Hur had his son with him. He said to his son, "Do not hesitate, advance." After a little while, Hur's son said to him, "Ali," he said, "I'm thirsty." Hur said, "Hussein is thirsty. Do not ask for water." When Hur's son received the fatal blow and he cried out, Hur broke away from the rest of the army. He stood. He sat with pride on the back of his steed. And he looked at Habib and others. He said, "Did you see how my son gave his life?" Instead of breaking like a proud man, a warrior, he goes to the head of his son. He says, "Oh child, you have done well, and may Allah reward you for what you have done. And your thirst will be quenched very soon." This is the morale of Hur. Hur fights with the enemies of Hussein. Finally, we are told he is struck upon his blessed head. As he is struck upon his blessed head, he falls to the ground. As he falls to the ground, he cries out, "O Hussein, take my greetings." This was a way in which the warriors bid farewell to their commander. Hussein and Habib rush to the side of Hur. Hussein takes the head of Hur and says, "Hur, indeed you are a free man. Your mother has named you accurately. The freest man are you in this world and the hereafter." Hur breaks into a smile. Habib looks at Hur. He says, "Oh Hur, do you see Hussein's grandfather coming to you and quenching your thirst with the goblet of Kawthar?" Hur looked at Habib. He said, "No, Habib, I see no such thing." He said, "Oh Hur, then why this smile?" He said, "Habib, because I find my head in the lap of this man." Ala la'natullah al-qawm al-zalimin. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة.
Thank you, Shaykh, for that lecture. That was lecture number 4 in the series. Today's lecture was entitled Communicating with the Mahdi. Shaykh, 3 questions on the discussions of supplications and salutations. Firstly, why does there appear to be a different standard in the validity of these compared to, for example, hadith?
Obviously, prayers are prayers and hadith is hadith, right? Hadith is our instructions, either in the terms of our jurisprudence or information that is, or teachings in terms of our theology. But salutation is when you salute somebody by acknowledging their praise, their standing, their achievement, their steadfastness. So obviously salutations have to be different. And supplication is an imam's or the Prophet or the imam's personal communication with God, which then we adopt and we make it our communication with our God if we relate to it. Otherwise, some of the supplications that the imams have taught, they have taught to their followers to teach them how to supplicate, not that they were their own personal supplication. So obviously, they have to be, by their very nature, they have to be different.
Secondly, by suggesting that a dua is not authentic, the questioner is asking, wouldn't that lead to somebody perhaps losing hope? And if they were sincere in their action, should they not continue?
If somebody is sincere in their action, of course they should continue and they should read those du'as. There are two things. Do not make it a part of religion, A. And B, if there is negativity in the dua, then understand that it was in the context in which it was delivered, that particular content was valid at the time when it was delivered, and at this point in time, that content should not inform us of our attitude and outlook. You read it, but be mindful of its context. And 3, if the content is conflicting with the Quran and the message of the Quran and the teaching of the Prophet and his family, then at that point be very careful.
Thirdly, the questioner says that we grew up as a generation reading the Arabic words before understanding them, before having an understanding of the theological framework. How do you recommend that we teach our upcoming generation, firstly, a theological framework before teaching them the Arabic dua?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the most important question ever. So we have to take hold of the Quran, the teachings of the Prophet, Imam Ali Salamullah alayhi, Al-Hasan Al-Hussein, Al-Baqir Al-Sadiq. Our scholars have written wonderful works explaining our theology, the meaning of the unity of God in existence, the unity of God in devotion, the unity of God in action, yes? The state of or the standard of the Prophet and his position, the attitude and the outlook of the Prophet and the Imams towards the world. The ulama have written good books there, but Quran is there. Quran is there, yes? An accurate understanding of the Quran, certain khutbahs of Ali Salamullah alayhi, Nahjul Balagha, certain du'as of Imam Ali like Kumail, Sawa, or dua of Imam Hussein, Arafah, or certain teachings of Imam Sadiq that are theological. They are profound. We should inform them of this theology through these sort of authentic texts first, and then take them through it.
Thank you. And the final question for today. In your series, you've described the collective evolution of humanity, of human thought. In Surah Waqi'ah, there's a discussion of the foremost, of being many from the first or the previous generations and few from the latter, and those of the right hand of being many from the first and many from the latter. Is there a consistency between these two?
Often people ask me, they say that majority of the people are going to go to hell. I beg to differ. But I need to answer this since you've asked, yes? Majority of humanity is good, yes? And it's bound to be good. It has to try a little bit harder to become the best. Now I always say, in order to understand our eschatology, the eventual end, and in order to understand heaven and hell, we need to understand the nature of our existence at present, because Allah has endowed us with His nature and created us in His image. So I often ask, in Birmingham, where you have 5 million people, how many prisons do you have? So there's only a few dungeons. And percentage-wise, how many people of Birmingham are in those dungeons as opposed to those who are out there as proper citizens? That in itself says that yes, there is a balance. There is a balance of good and evil. But that is the balance of absolute evil and less than absolute evil that is not harmful. But every one of us has evil in us that we have to purge. So now, when the verse says to hell, Halim tala'ati, are you full? And the hell says, Hal min mazid. Obviously, it must be a Maulana, the hell, something like that. You can always eat more. And I've been told to not refrain from this sort of answers, and I'm a Maulana myself. But hell is like a small prison. Right? Hell is like a small prison. Hell is full, and it says, God, are there any more to come in me? Do you get it? So, if hell is like a small prison, then of course hell will be filled up very, very quickly. Right? Just like Birmingham. Birmingham prisons. So, if you look at that surah, it says, وَالسَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ, the forerunners. There will be a number from the preceding generation and a few from the latter generation. But the people of the right hand, there will be a number from the preceding and a number from the later generation. It doesn't say a few. Can you see that? So this is a misinterpretation of that verse. That verse of the right hand is not saying a few from the latter generation. It's saying no, a good number from the previous generation and a good number from the latter generation will be Ashabul Yameen. Yeah? But as far as the Ashabul Yasar are concerned, no numbers are placed there. The hadith of the Prophet, in which the Prophet said to his Sahaba that for each one who goes into paradise, 999 will go to hell. So the Sahaba started crying. Obviously, we would all cry, right? So the Prophet said, no, it's not you. It's the Gog Magog. The Gog Magog are creatures that are bound for hell, and there are so many that they far outnumber you. So there will be, the majority of Gog and Magog will be going to hell, the majority of you guys are going to paradise. But they outnumber you by many folds. So when we read this literature very, very carefully, it leaves us with a lot of optimism. Yes? Inshallah, maybe we can explain this a bit further in the days to come. Inshallah.
Thank you, Shaykh. Though there are some more questions, perhaps we can save them for another night. Can I ask that we prepare for Maghrib prayer, and Ziyarat will be recited after Maghrib prayer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.